We had one tabled item and 4 scheduled matters. For tonight, we have proof of legal publication from the Webster Herald. The one tabled item they've asked to be tabled once again because they had to get their instrument survey updated. So we're going to the tabled item we're going to table again at the applicant's request till the August 11th meeting. So before we get started, let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let's call Catherine.
Yes. Mr. Barone?
Here.
Mr. Denoto?
Here.
Mr. DeMarco?
Here.
Mr. Schneider?
Here.
Mr. Hauser?
Here.
Mr. Artuso?
Okay. As I said, 766 Ridge Road is tabled again until August 11th. And the first scheduled matter on the agenda is 1516 Grand Meadows Way Shed, located at 1516 Grand Meadows Way. Applicant Bruce Brownfeld is requesting an area variances to allow 5-foot side setback where 15 feet is required and a 5-foot rear setback where 15 feet is required, associated with the construction of a 10-foot by 12-foot shed on a .34 acre parcel having SBL number 65.02-02-46, located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 225-48 of the Code of the Town of Webster. So welcome.
Thank
Tell us, if you could state your name and tell us a little bit about your property, please.
My name is Bruce Brownfeld. I'm the owner of the property at 1516 Grand Meadows Way in Webster. I've been living there approximately a year and a half now. And so I'm here seeking a variance to have a shed installed on the southeast corner of my property, 5 feet in from both property lines. Actually, would end up being right next to my neighbor's shed, who was approved at the last meeting, I believe. So there'd be about 10 feet in between both sheds. I've already submitted the building permits. I'm just awaiting approval from you.
Was that one we were approved 5 feet also? I believe it was. Do you recall? Was it 5 feet? Some of those have been 5 feet, some have been 7 feet.
Yeah, that's around Collins Hill.
It's a corner lot. It's a cluster development, so the lot's small. The house is pushed to the rear and back. Backyard is only 15 feet deep, 15.5 feet deep. So we've had several requests for variances in that neighborhood because the lots are so small. Interestingly, the side setback for the house allowable there, I think, is 7. Is that correct, Josh? Is it 7 in that cluster development? Okay, so the main structure could be 7 feet from the sideline. You were probably involved in that. Was it 7 or 5?
It was 5 feet.
Was it 5 for the side of the house?
Having a 15-foot separation from main structure to main structure.
Yeah. So I think this board's opinion in the past has been, if you could have the main structure 5 feet from the line, why not a shed? If I think I'm speaking for the board, but if I say anything out of line, just speak up, anybody. So that that's the reason we've granted variances in this neighborhood before. The lots are very small. Anybody have any?
I think nothing to add.
This meeting is open to public comment. If anybody wishes to speak for or against this application, our phone number is 872-7011. And while we're waiting for the phone to ring,
if the shed was before I was back here, the one that was originally, was that 5 foot on both sides, or?
yeah,
Okay.
it was. Yeah. we've seen probably 10 shed variances in this neighborhood so far.
Yeah, it's a fairly new one, so.
Pursuant to 617.5 of the environmental code, I'll make a motion for a type 2 seeker.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. This is pretty straightforward, in my opinion. It's, I'll just run through the standards. It's not out of character with the neighborhood. As I said, they're tiny lots, just very small lots, small backyards. We've granted other shed variances in the neighborhood just for that same reason. So this is pretty much consistent with what we've granted before. There is no detriment created nearby properties. Actually, as the gentleman stated, we gave the neighbor a shed variance right next door. The sheds are going to kind of be, back to back with each other. So it's not out of character. The request is not substantial based on what we've, done before in that neighborhood. No adverse physical or environmental impacts to the site or neighborhood. Difficulty is not really self-created. It's just the nature of this particular subdivision. These small lot subdivisions appeal to our aging demographic, less lawn to mow. So this is the way things are headed. It's not undesirable change, and it's not significant. So with that, I'll make a motion to grant an area variance to Bruce Brownfeld to allow a 5-foot side setback where 15 feet is required and a 5-foot rear setback where 15 feet is required, associated with the construction of a 10-foot by 12-foot shed on a .34 acre parcel having SBL number 65.02-02-46, located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 225-48 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Barone?
Aye.
Mr. Denoda?
Aye.
Mr. Snyder?
Aye.
Mr. Hauser?
Aye.
Okay, just a couple conditions. You need to get a town building permit, and the town hall is actually open now. You gotta wear a mask and you gotta check in, but you can actually go into the town hall now, which is refreshing. And meaningful construction within 1 year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're all set.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay. Okay, the second agenda item, I'll read it while the applicant is coming into the room, is 589 Adams Road fence. Located at 589 Adams Road, applicant Amy Holtz is requesting area variances to allow a 6-foot tall fence 2 feet from the southern property line and a 6-foot tall fence 3 feet from the northern property line where 10 feet is required to repair an existing 6-foot tall fence that is in disrepair on a .37 acre parcel having SBL number 063.11-2-40, located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 225-77C of the Code of the Town of Webster. Welcome.
Hi.
If you could state your name, please, for the record, and tell us about your project.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Holtz, and I'm the owner of 589 Adams Road in Webster, New York. I recently purchased this property exactly 8 weeks ago today, and I have lived in Webster over 15 years. We are looking to improve the property and get a variance on our fence. When purchasing our property, there was a 6-foot fence in the rear of the property, which matched some other properties in the neighborhood on St. Rita's Court. And we would like to make the sides match the front and the rear of the property. The side fencing is over 23 years old, and at some portions is 3.5 foot dipped down, other portions more than 5 foot tall. I do have a large German Shepherd that I would like to keep contained into my yard and also make the neighborhood look better. I don't feel that this request is out of the characteristics of other fencing in the neighborhood, and I have more than 5 letters from neighbors approving of the projects we're doing around the house.
Okay. Now, You bought the house, these fences were already there when you purchased the house, is that correct?
When I purchased the home, the rear fence was there. The sides have not been completed as of yet, but the rear fence was there and the front fence was there, but not on the sides.
But I asked for that to be checked, and none of the fences that are mentioned or the applicant's existing fence are permitted. So they were built without variances where they should have had them.
Without permits, without variances?
What I was told when I purchased the home, was that the gentleman that owned the home worked at Chase Pickin, and they were what they were calling handmade fences, so they didn't have to worry about it.
That's not the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
They made their own rules, okay. Well, traditionally, town and this board have been opposed to 6-foot fences. I think that's been pretty consistent for us. Once in a while, we'll do it where it's some unusual circumstance. Like, we had one where there's a handicapped child and they wanted, keep the child out there, not worry about people, people seeing the child playing in the yard.
And
and so
if I
on.
may,
We had
Mr.
one- We had one with a police dog,
Yeah.
but he kept it in from the lot line a bit. And the police dog could have easily jumped the 6-foot fence. He said that's the way they're trained, but,
Mr. Barone, if I may, I believe it was you and your wife that stopped by my house on a Sunday evening to check the fence line. And we walked the property and I showed you that although I'm asking to install a 5 to 6 foot fence line, it actually is not that tall because of the rise of the dirt.
yeah, I noticed on part of it was more of a 5-foot
Yeah,
height viewed from the neighbor's side,
correct.
but I'm not sure how that happened, but the soil is up against it. Now, that fence is already in place, right?
Correct.
You're not asking to replace that one.
No, I'm just asking to match it. And keep my shepherd in. He's not a canine, but he is a shepherd.
And yet, if this had come in properly, we would have denied it.
We would have had we would have moved it in somewhat, at least.
Mm-hmm.
We've, in the past, we've allowed 6-foot fences with, with compelling reasons, but we always have the people move them in from the property. Even the one with the police dog, the sheriff that had, he moved it in from the lot line 5 feet or something like that, just to give him room to maintain it and so on.
Right, I mean, the
Richard
maintenance is
Bott-
the one issue, so.
Excuse me, Richard Bott is the neighbor that is directly on the home behind that fence that was existing when I moved in, and I do have a letter from him stating that he approves of it and that he welcomes the improvements.
Yeah, can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, I can give you all these,
Okay.
because I have more than 5 or 6 letters.
Standard we have to use, or we have used for the years I've been on the board, is if you came before the board and asked for the variance for your project, would we have granted it?
Right.
I think Eric hit on that. I've been on the board a number of years. There's been a couple extenuating circumstances where we allowed a 6-foot fence on the property line, but in most cases, we've asked for some kind of a concession from the homeowner, mostly because of maintenance. And if you bought the house, what did you say, 6 weeks ago, and they had gotten the variance for the fences as they are now, they would have transferred to you.
Correct.
And they're going to transfer to the next homeowner too. So we have to keep something, some precedent in our decision making, and we have a set of standards that we have to go through. And initially, at this point in time, there's several that you're not going to meet. So we wouldn't have a choice but to deny. I'm speaking for myself. So the fence as it stands right now is on the property line.
Correct.
And you are going to replace the fence.
Not the one that was existing when I purchased the home. So I'm only asking to replace the two sides which are on disrepair.
At what height are those two that you're gonna replace?
One is 4 foot currently,
So you're gonna replace it
3.5
with
at the lowest and 5 foot at the highest, because there are pictures of the fence in my application, but
I have them.
yeah, it's kinda all over the place.
Why don't we start with providing us an explanation on the fence along St. Rita's Court?
Okay, that's the one that is in the worst condition, if you will. I've had some trouble finding out where the property line is and where it is not. So right now, the current fence is 2 foot into the property of St. Rita's Court. I'm asking to bring it in further onto my property and straighten the line and repair the fence or make it new. I only have 2 immediate neighbors because St. Rita's Court is one of my neighbors, the driveway. So all the neighbors that drive into St. Rita's Court every day are in favor of this fence, and they're looking forward to the improving of the property. The only other neighbor I have, which is Richard Bott, he is up against the fence on the back side of the property, and he is in favor, and I have a letter from him. And then the other neighbor that I have that is immediate is Mr. Baxter, and he has also written me a letter. And his statement was, as long as it's straight, I don't care. Because right now what they're looking at is not straight. But he's also written me a letter. I guess what has been happening, because nobody is maintaining the property outside of that fence, it just looks awful.
So there's 2 fences that are going to be rebuilt and one that's there already.
Which doesn't comply.
Yeah.
Josh, were there any permits issued for the fencing, the existing fencing on this property?
No, there were not. Did you have some back knowledge, I believe, about the history?
What I was told from Ron Smith when I purchased the home is that he did not need permits because he knew the person in charge of the town. So, and then that's what I was told, but you know how that goes.
Yeah, this is something that the realtors and the attorney should have cleared up before the house was closed on, but normally they just like to cruise on through and leave you holding the bag. Unfortunately, the fence on the rear lot line, even though Mr. Bott is in favor of it now, if the Botts move on and a new neighbor comes in and he does not want you on his property to maintain the fence, that becomes a problem. And this board's view on that is that we can't create a situation that allows you to access your neighbor's property. And so that means that the fence can't be on the lot line because you can't do anything to maintain a 6-foot fence from your own property line at this time. The fact that it was already there, really because of the fact that it wasn't permitted and it wasn't done properly, you might have, some sort of legal remedy with the people who told you that it was properly done, but the board doesn't have to consider that.
Understood. Would you like to see the letters from my neighbors?
Please, yeah, sure.
This,
St. Rita's Court is a dedicated roadway.
St. Rita's Court is not, no, is it dedicated? It's private.
It's 50-foot right away.
Oh, it is, okay.
There are only 4 houses back there, aren't there?
Yeah. Yeah, you could perform it on the drive, yeah.
Oh, okay, then it would have to be dedicated.
Yeah, it is an ROW, yeah.
I really would have a problem of providing much of a variance that close as being proposed to that right away.
Yeah, I see your point.
really never granted that much of a variance for a fence in the front yard, and it is a front yard.
Well, when I said the front, sir, I probably misspoke. It's actually on the side of the house, but it's the front side of the fence.
I understand, but it's a
Okay.
corner lot. The corner lot has two fronts, one side and one rear.
Gotcha.
This meeting is open to the public. Anyone wishing to speak for or against, you can call us at 872-7011. What are you thinking on that front setback, Don? What's your opinion?
The front setback for R3
Well,
is
along
40
St. Rita's
feet.
Court.
I'd like to see at least 20 feet of space there. I mean, 40 feet's required. We had a difficult time with the application last week on, was it Shanley? And they were requesting 36 feet.
That was a corner lot.
Yeah, same circumstance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't consider anything less than 20 feet, my opinion.
Okay. So, what Mr. House is saying, since you're on a corner lot, your yard towards St. Rita's Court is a front yard setback.
Gotcha.
Corner lots have two front yards,
Okay.
one on each road. And we just had an application last week where a corner lot, and we had them keep the fence back 36 feet from the road. Now, St. Rita's Court is not a very highly traveled thoroughfare, but what Mr. House is indicating, he thinks maybe a 20-foot setback on that one side would be appropriate, being that it is a right-of-way in a front yard, which is...
So let me ask you this. You saw that property and how disgusting it is because nobody's maintaining it. If I bring my fence line in further, then you're gonna have me complaining that they're not maintaining that area.
Well, even if you brought the fence in, you'd still have to mow the grass on the outside of the fence.
Yeah, I'd have to mow mine, but then I still have to look at a strip of theirs that's not maintained.
Well, that's true, and if they weren't maintaining it, then you have recourse through the town to begin enforcement proceedings.
It doesn't make me a very nice neighbor.
Actually, everybody mows the lawn right up to the street, even though the town owns 17 and a half feet of that. It's not
Right.
really your property. You
Right.
still mow your lawn to the street because you want your front yard to look good. So
Yeah.
it's, not an unusual situation to mow the lawn right to the street.
They've just let it kind of grow wild because they didn't like to look at what was there.
Well, that's an option, of course, yeah.
We have individuals in town like that. Remember where that one subdivision, Mary? Where the gentleman just left his yard natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few of those.
I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
That's right.
Okay. Now, what about that rear? You think it would be appropriate to have the applicant move that fence, even though it's been there since you built the house? I don't know.
The one Mr. Bolt's?
Yeah. That's the one.
I'd like to see a maintenance agreement on that. That fence exists and it's somewhat new. I'd like to see a maintenance agreement with Mr. Bolt's, but at least 20 feet of that existing,
Yeah. That one corner's on,
that one
there's
corner
very little space, but that
area
corner's
would
right
have
on
to
the
be
line.
removed.
Do you have an opinion on that, John?
We're talking about the one,
Like a maintenance agreement with a neighbor?
I mean, it may work in the short term. I don't know if that's.
Is it a recordable instrument?
No, it's not, probably not gonna run with the land, but it would be good in the meantime, but better than a stick in the eye, I guess.
It's something.
Something.
Yeah, but this is the same discussion we had last week when we were just on Shanley, where we really can't, because it doesn't run with the land and it's not recordable on the deed, and so therefore it's pretty much unenforceable.
See, the issue we have with that is that technically, you can't go on your neighbor's property to repair or paint or stain or do anything to that fence on that outside.
Got it, yeah.
And you always have the better side of the fence facing the neighbor, so that's the side that always ends up having to be repaired.
So the thought process is with a shorter fence, I could reach over the top to maintain it? Is that what it is?
Well, you could put a 4-foot fence right on the lot line.
Right.
just
And
on your side of the lot line, I
to maintain it, then
should
I would
say.
just go over the top? Is that what the thought process is?
Yeah, that's literally it. You put a stain roller on a brush and
Should reach right over.
reach right over
Got
the
it.
top if you had to.
Okay.
4-foot fence wouldn't work for you?
Pardon me?
4-foot fence would not work for you?
It would work, but I'm afraid that animal control would be called the first time my black German Shepherd goes over that fence. And it's, you know what a German Shepherd can do. They're 90 pounds and they don't have to blink twice. Now, he's not aggressive in any way, but if he sees a deer, he will go to chase it. That's what they do. And I'm trying to visualize, I guess, the front fence, which is along the corner of my house, if I was to do what you're asking me, bringing in 20 foot on that side off St. Rita's Court. You want me to jut out from that corner that's existing fence, come in and back around?
Well, I think what we'd like to see is it parallel with that lot line,
Okay,
20 feet front to back, parallel with the lot line.
okay.
And that would require a variance too.
Yeah.
It would also require me to take down the existing front side of the fence on Adams that's already there.
That's correct.
And the rear, for
Yeah.
that matter.
I think the board's willing to make some concession from the code, but it's gonna be some work on your part.
Absolutely.
Okay. Am I reading you guys right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Just not costing me a heck of a lot more money, I hope.
all sections have their own problems. I mean, the back section that she's not gonna replace is on the property line. The St. Rita's Court, it's got a 2-foot setback now, and to Don's point, and I agree with him, is that, a minimum, and that would still require a variance, is 20 feet. I've lived on a corner lot before, I would swear I would never do it again, for all these reasons. And even the northernmost, you're gonna replace that, but that right now, currently, it's got a 3-foot.
3-foot setback.
It's 3-foot setback, and, is that 4 foot? Is that a 4-foot fence?
The highest point right now, it's 5 foot, and the lowest point, it's 3.5.
Because it makes a difference on the height of the fence, what the code says for
Right.
a
Are you
setback.
asking about, I'm sorry, are you asking about the existing fence or what?
I'm asking what you're gonna replace it with,
5
because
foot.
Okay, now, if you do a 5-foot fence, you only need to be in 5 feet from the lot line, side and rear.
Right.
Did you already purchase the fence?
Well, when I started this process, I was purchasing, but now you can no longer buy wood.
Okay. Well,
I didn't realize it was going to take me 6 weeks to get here, so wood is now sold out till September.
from our point of view, we try and minimize variances.
Yeah,
From our point of view, I think a 5-foot fence with 5-foot setback on the north and west side and 20 feet in on the other would, I think the board could get behind that.
Yeah, that's,
I think, and the difference between 3 feet and 5 foot in a fence, oh my gosh, it's when it's built, you don't even know it. You know what I'm
but
saying?
it's a big deal when it comes to a dog, so 5 foot is fine. 6 foot is preferred, so that nobody's reaching their hands over there, but,
But I mean the setback between 3 feet and 5
Sure.
feet, unless somebody gets a ruler out and actually measures it, you can't see that. So,
right.
Would you be willing to do 5-foot setbacks on the north and west side and then 20 foot on the other along St. Rita's Court?
Yeah, so when you're saying along St. Rita's Court, is that from the middle of the road at St. Rita's Court?
That
Or
would
is
be
that
from the edge of the right of way.
From the edge of the right of way?
That's
Okay.
that, if you have the map, it's that dark line that wraps right around.
Yeah, I mean, the current fence is exceeding over that edge. As long as I can still get a gate and a mower in and out of the property, because right now I cannot, but absolutely.
Well, the survey shows a gate adjacent to the house.
It's a single gate. Unfortunately, a mower will not get in there.
Well, if
Well,
you,
20 feet will provide you more than enough room for a gate.
Yeah, I'll just have to redo the whole thing.
yeah, well, if you're gonna replace the fence, you can put whatever gate you want in it.
Well, I wasn't planning to replace that front side on the Adams Road side. I was planning to just match it. Because that is the only fence on the property that looks halfway decent.
Okay, I guess what I'm hearing from the board members is, would you be willing to go 5 feet off those other two lines and 20 off the St. Rita's Court?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
That means she's gonna take down a fence she's not planning on taking down, though.
Well, there's labor involved, no
I-
question about it.
I just want to be clear, because right now she said that the westernmost point, that's on the property line, you weren't gonna touch that, correct? You were just gonna leave it.
I was.
What Mr. Bruin is proposing is bringing that fence in 5 feet. You understand that? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what are we talking about on Mr. Bott's side of the property?
That's the side.
That's, you want me to move that
That's what
whole
we're
fence
talking
too?
about.
And not a maintenance
That would be
agreement
the-
that we
would
talked
be the-
about?
That would be that 5 foot on the west side.
So we're speaking along the north side from the house. A 5-foot fence set back 5 feet from the northern property line. Along Mr. Bott's property, a 5-foot fence 5 feet from the property line. Along a fence running parallel with St. Rita's Court, 5-foot fence, 20 feet, 20-foot setback.
Now, I don't want you to think we're trying to take things, the 20-foot setback along St. Rita's Court's a big deal,
Yes,
because you're supposed to be 40
hearing
feet
that.
back, all right?
right.
Okay, so it's not like we're trying to, just take everything you've asked for away from you. We're just trying to minimize the variances and make it long-term. I mean, someday you may move and somebody else is gonna move in and they're gonna have to live with what we do here tonight.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Problem with the agreement that they talked about earlier is if he sells that house next week, that agreement is null and void. And the next owner might not allow you to be on that property to service that fence.
Yeah. The other thing that's happening, because I'm in the business, more and more attorneys are they're supposed to check for all the permits, all the variances before you close on a property. So this will make everything on your property legal. So someday, not that you're gonna sell it quickly, but someday when you sell it, things go smoothly. So
Yep.
it's gonna help.
You'll have the variances, those will be passed along to whoever owns the house after you.
On the bright side, the shed is plenty far enough away from the lot lines.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess my concern in this is if I have to bring the fence line in, then I have to mow inside and outside the fence and my property is no longer usable?
Yeah,
For my kids and
that's,
dogs?
yeah, literally, that's what happens.
Well, I guess it's your definition of usable.
Yeah.
It's gonna be on the outside of the fence, but I still would call it
But what you may
usable.
want to do is plant another gate in the back, so it's easy.
Money.
Well, for ease of access. Well,
If you're doing it now,
unfortunately, I'm handy,
this would
so
be
I
the
don't
time.
consider
A gate
that.
in itself is $400. You know, when you're putting up a fence is expensive, but each gate is $400. Unless you wanted to sag and hang later. I mean, it sounds simple to put a gate in, but
No,
it's not that simple.
I understand. All it was a suggestion.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, honestly, if you're 3 feet in from the line or 5 feet, you still have to mow behind the fence. It's still, you know, I mean, it's 2 passes with the mower, but, you know, and you were proposing 3 feet anyway, so it still has to be maintained.
So it sounds like cost-wise, I'd be better to run a chainsaw across that fence to make it a 4-foot fence.
Maybe.
Quite literally, that's.
And then just deal with the fact that my dog could jump over.
Yeah, and then whether or not the dog jumps over, I don't know, you know, that's, and, yeah, if you were to make that a 4-foot fence,
You can tie.
all you need is a permit, and it's a legal fence.
Okay.
Is a 4-foot fence still has to be 40 foot off the right of way for a front yard though,
A
right?
stockade fence is not permitted in the front setback.
Right,
Well, she'd still need the variance for that one fence no matter what,
yeah, okay.
yeah. And same thing on
And that's the
your,
one on St. Rita's Court.
Correct.
same thing on the north side, you know, if that was a 4-foot fence, you can go right up to the lot line on that one too.
Okay.
It's the way.
So, how did my neighbors at St. Rita's Court, 3 of them, end up with 6-foot fences on their property lines if I can't get one?
They're not permitted and we're already looking into that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, this is hard to believe, but there's a lot of things that have been built in this town without permits. And people just do things, and it's
Got it.
happened here, you know, and then when somebody goes to get a building permit for something, the building inspector notices, hey, you never
How
got a
many
permit for
other
this.
towns have this requirement of a 6-foot fence?
None have as restrictive as the town of Webster,
Why is that?
unfortunately.
Webster's where life is worth living.
I agree with you. I
So why
can't
are we
explain
making
why.
this fuss when I'm trying to be a good neighbor?
Well, the thought is that the town wants to maintain an more open space type environment. We don't want to end up looking like Southern California where everybody's got a 6-foot fence on the lot line around their property and, you know, whatever. And instead, we want the vistas, we want the open space. The town's made considerable investment in parkland and open space, and so the code embodies that desire. The town code basically says life's worth living because it's a more rural neighborhood,
Gotcha.
so.
Or once was. Obviously Webster has changed over the years.
No, I don't know. That's what brought me here, but honestly,
So, at this point, are you serious about making it a 4-foot fence, or would you rather?
cost-wise, I'm a single mother, so I don't want to bring tears to this, but a chainsaw is going to have to be my answer.
Okay, now,
I wanted to make it look nice. I wanted to do the right thing,
well,
but you're putting me in a spot that no other town puts people in.
now, just bear in mind, the other option is to just move it in, leave the 5-foot fence, because it's 5 feet already is what you're telling me. And just
Yeah,
move
but you're
it.
telling me I have to move something that I purchased that way. You're telling me to move something in on the side 20 feet in, which is going to look ridiculous unless I move the front and the back to match it. Nobody wants to look at that. I want my house to look nice. To have the back end sticking out, the front end sticking out, and then have St. Rita's Court in 20 feet, it's going to look crazy.
You still wind up with a pretty adequate backyard. It's a 100-foot wide lot, which is not great for a corner lot, but it still winds up being a big yard.
But I guess it's something you need to know when you move to Webster.
You, I don't know, we pretty much talked about a lot of different ways to do this. I don't think the board's going to approve exactly what you wanted,
I'm
obviously.
not
So
asking for
it's a
exact,
matter
sir.
of,
I'm asking for cost-effective and looking nice for the neighbors. I'm asking for you to work with me. Let me leave what's there existing and let me match it and bring it into what your standards are, but don't make me take on the financial responsibility of something that I did not do.
I'm wondering if, the board would consider 3 feet in with a 5-foot high fence on two sides. I agree with Don on the front setback, the 20-foot. There's some work involved in moving that back fence in, though. Good news is West Webster's all sand, so the holes dig really easy.
Well, she's,
Would you like to come over and help?
We could get a party
If it's
together.
so easy.
I would call the attorneys and that you used it to close, I mean, and help you move that.
I agree.
Right?
I mean, they're
I
putting
mean,
us in a bad spot.
yeah, that's fine, and I'm sympathetic, but the truth of the matter is that should have been resolved at closing. I mean,
Well, quite honestly, I had a deadline and I had to get out.
but they still didn't do their job. I mean, I mean.
They did to keep
That
us out of a
fence,
hotel,
the fence
sir.
didn't have a permit, the fence didn't have a variance, that fence wasn't permitted, and they closed anyways. And I'm sympathetic, and we're trying to work with you, believe it or not. And we're telling you the things unofficially that the board would permit.
Right. And I appreciate that, but I'm looking at it from a financial standpoint that a circular saw or a chainsaw is gonna be a lot less expense than moving all those posts.
It's happened before.
I can see why.
Who's doing the work?
Myself and whoever I can get to help me.
I don't know if I don't know if the other board members would agree with me, because I'm one member. All our votes are equal. We're
I
all,
understand.
I would be in favor of the 3-foot setback front, north and west, with a 5-foot fence. But I'd like to stick with the 20-foot setback along St. Rita's Court. Is that something you would entertain?
That is something I would entertain, but I would have to take down some sections in the back still
Yeah.
to make it line up, because it would look ridiculous.
Correct.
You want to table this application till you have a chance to do that? And then.
You could, as what Bob's suggesting is you could table this till next meeting and think about this a little bit.
And look-
Because we're kind of
and look at
putting you
what-
on the spot, all right? So if you need a couple weeks to think about it, we'd be willing to table the
I
application.
don't have a lot to think about. I have to do whatever you're going to tell me that I'm going to do.
Well, not completely. I mean, you can come back in and say, well, what about this, what about that?
But it
just,
sounds like Webster is not fond of 6-foot fences, and it doesn't sound like any other town.
6-foot
is like
fences
that.
on the property line.
Right.
And I've been on this board, like I said, for a number of years, and I think I count 2.
Yeah.
Extenuating circumstances. And in most cases, we vary from the code to grant variances for shorter than 6-foot. I've seen it 5-foot, I've seen it 10-foot, and we've granted all those variances. So we want to work with you, but what we see today, people can come before the board in the future and say, well, here, you did this. And we can't.
Well, and I get that, but I guess for me personally, just because it's the way we've always done it, doesn't mean that's the way we should be doing it, because we should be constantly rethinking what we're doing and what is right and what is wrong versus that's the way we've always done it.
But at the end, you've got a point there. Unfortunately, this board's bound by the code and by the standards. The town board could look at that and say, yeah, we need to change this, and so we're going to.
And we are working on that, just so you know.
That's going to come up.
Well, yeah, and I would assume that as,
But-
staff turns
but right
over,
now,
new
but-
minds will think
Like
differently.
Mr. Schneider said, we're bound by the code.
Right.
We're willing to make some reasonable concessions, but for the most part, we have to stick by the, by the intent of the code.
Correct,
Okay.
understood.
So you understand, you've got 2 options that I think you're weighing. This is why I asked you if you wanted to table this take a saw to the back section and leave it where it is, right? Or come in 3, 5 feet and replace that fence, or, I don't, is it 5 foot now?
Yes,
The
it's 5
contour
foot
is
now.
still the same. So, but you still have to move that fence that's on the bots side, which means it's labor. The other two sections, you're gonna replace it new anyway, so you're gonna do it and put it where the variance is granted, right? But the one on the bot side, 4 foot, it can stay, 5 foot, it has to come in. So you do have a couple options there. Do you wanna look at it and see?
Yeah, I don't have any choice.
You do, I guess I gave you two. You have two choices on the back, on the bots side.
I cannot afford to move that fence.
So, saw,
It will have to be a saw, yeah, unfortunately.
okay.
How anxious are you to do this? I mean, something you want to start tomorrow? Or,
Well, the side on St. Rita's Court is currently held up by plow stakes, because it's falling over. But there, like I said, there's no wood to be had at this point. So I had contacted some Mennonites to start milling me some wood.
okay. I mean, myself, I don't make good decisions when I'm under pressure. So maybe you should come back in 2 weeks. Really think about this. You don't have to pay any more fees. There's no more applications. Think about what options we've discussed and come back, because we're going to have to make a motion based on what you ask us to make a motion on, and then it gets approved or disapproved. So if a couple weeks doesn't really matter that much to you, I would take those 2 weeks.
Doesn't matter to me if it doesn't matter to you, but I can.
No,
No, it
it's,
doesn't matter.
at the end of the day, you just make our lives easier if we figure this all out.
We're here every 2 weeks anyways. If you table it, we put it on the next meeting, you have a chance to go and look and possibly come up with an option that we didn't present and you didn't offer. Maybe. I mean, maybe you come back and say, no, we just gotta do the 4 foot, and I'm gonna leave it where it is.
Can I ask how many of you actually drove by the site and looked?
I was there today.
I was there Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So you
walked
saw
whole
the
perimeter.
mess that I'm dealing with from the neighbors that I have to look at if I move that in.
Oh, yeah, no, it's corner lots are nuisance.
The next meeting will be August 11th, if you want to, if you wish to table it.
If you can't get the sections of fence now anyways, 2 weeks is not gonna make that big of a difference for you.
Correct.
Okay. It's a lot to think about, so maybe you can come back and say, I'm willing to do this, this, and this, and if this board can live with it, we'll make a motion and move on it. All right?
Okay,
So,
so let's
The
go ahead and
applicant-
table it.
okay, applicant wishes to table, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Shall I take my letters from the neighbors back?
No, you can
It's up to you.
give it to
Would
Josh.
you like those so
No,
they
you know
can
what?
see that they
No,
are
we'll-
in favor of what's
No,
happening?
no, let's, let me have Catherine make this part of the record, all right? I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Okay. Now, I'm going to read the next application, but I'm going to have to recuse myself from the last two items on the agenda. And Mr. Denoto will act as the chair, so I'll read it in and then I'll have to leave the room.
Why both of the last ones?
The last two.
My understanding is Longview's going with Kevin Fior.
That's okay, too. Nothing wrong with that. I like that one, Kevin's cool. All right, 949 Webster Road addition, located at, 494 Webster Road. Applicants Keith and Beth Simpson are requesting area variance to allow a 50-foot front setback where 85 feet is required, associated with an addition to the existing single-family dwelling on a .5-acre parcel having SBL number 065.01-1-2, located in an R1 single-family district under section 225-9B sub 5, sub A, sub 1 in the Code of Town of Webster. And I am going to leave the room. Mr. Denola, you could have the chair.
So then, ultimately, the vote here has to be unanimous then, correct?
Well, hopefully you'll explain that to the applicant if things
Sure.
get a little dicey.
It's gonna be so good, you're gonna say, go for it, because it's not gonna be that bright yellow anymore.
What's the matter with the yellow? Did you see my truck out there?
Hello. You want to tell us a little bit about your project?
Yes, we purchased the house on June 15th. We're looking to downsize and get a ranch for, this is it, this is retirement home. And we need to have a little extra space because I have a son who with disabilities who's be living with us probably forever. And because of medical issues, one of us might end up in a wheelchair. So we're making the hallways wider and we're adding a bedroom, 2 bedrooms and a bath on the one side. And it's going to come out 20 feet, and if you've been by the house, there's like a bird bath and a garden in the front. It's only going to go to just where that garden starts, so it's not even going to reach where the bird bath is, so it sticks out a little bit. Shouldn't change the character of the neighborhood. I drove by and I took pictures of other homes that are as close or closer by my viewpoint, because I can't see their property maps. I took pictures of them if you want, but I don't think it's going to change the character of the neighborhood. It's just going to kick out on the one side, and we're actually going to try to make it a little bit more pleasing. Curb appeal, thank you.
Yeah, it looks like on the drawing that the setback to the addition is still going to be 50 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't come out any further on the north side of the residence. It's actually in line, so you're gonna maintain that side setback?
Yep, that's 22 and a half feet on that side that we have.
Mhm.
Yep.
Why can't the addition go on the back of the house?
The way well, why don't you take this?
I can see you.
The property.
Yeah, to use the microphone. The property owns inclines on the back of it, so if we went toward the back, then the dirt line would probably be at the window level. Plus, by going toward the street with that, it gives us the southwest exposure with 250. A nice little curb appeal in with a place to sit there and watch. There's a lot of bikers and walkers and neighbors throughout the community. And I think it would be a nice little area to to hang out and watch it on days like today. This would be a wonderful day to, if we could, visit neighbors, but now we can give them a wave as they go by.
Plus the sewage line goes through the back.
The sewer line goes up toward the back. The water and gas is right up from the driveway. And our utilities, our furnace and water heater is also on that back corner.
The sewage line, it goes in the basement and goes up through the backyard to the neighbors behind, the street behind us.
Mm-hmm.
The way that is set.
Yeah, the sewer easement
Yeah.
is on the lot behind you.
Yeah. I think it'd be a lot less disturbance if we went to the front.
Don, you got a follow-up? You good with that?
When I was there, the existing houses to the north and south are set on 70-foot setbacks as they would have been because of the R1 and all of the other stipulations there. So I have to agree with Mr. Hauser in terms of the code having the addition put on the rear of the house is much more acceptable. This is a fairly large encroachment into the 50-foot front setback, so, or into a 70-foot front setback, so.
And it is
I got pictures, and there's a house, 2 houses down from us that we're not going to be out as far, and 2 houses to the north and 2 houses to the south of us that are going to be closer to the road than we are already. So I don't know how it's going to change the character. I brought pictures if you wanted to see.
Yes, please.
Oops, sorry. up the road a little bit to Schlegel and down a little bit, just so you can see that what we're asking shouldn't change the character of the neighborhood at all. I like the character, that's what I want there.
Thank you.
So, I ask you, because you gave the answer, but I want to hear, so you're proposing the addition on the west side of, on the front of your residence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me again why you can't put that on the back side, on the east side. What obstructions you have there?
Well,
There's already I mean, you said something about the view of, that's nice, and I believe that's true, but that isn't a reason for us to approve the variance on the front of the house as opposed to the back house.
Not only is the house utilities in that corner at this present time, but there's also a little addition that's on the back of the house there. So if we brought this addition into it, we would no longer have a hip roof in with it to be having to change the whole roof part of it, as well as the way the land inclines, that there will be a lot of soil removal have to be made in order to keep this all a single level area.
and there's no basement on that side, because you have the garage and then the addition, so there's no basement on that side. What we want to do is have the basement so you can heat it properly and be able to get to any water lines or anything like that down the road. So there's no, it's like garage, and then they just have a little crawl space under the new addition part.
Okay, excuse me, I need to, the north side of the house that's currently 22 foot by 24.2 foot, there's no basement
No,
for that
on the
portion?
north side, yes. He's talking about if I moved it to the south,
No,
the east side, I thought you meant the southeast.
so the north side of the house is on, but just on the back of the house, not the east side. Yes.
We'd have to disturb the whole sewage and everything through that, to do that, because that's where the sewage comes out.
There is a little addition, it's off on the east side now, that has a gable roof, the rest of the house is a hip roof.
What is the purpose of the addition? How would it fit with the existing floor plan of your house?
So on the north, the south side is a living room, kitchen, family room. The north side is going to be the bedroom areas. And I want to have, but there's very small bedrooms currently there right now. And I also want to have first floor laundry because most likely we're not going to be able to use the stairs going to the basement in the future. And the reason why I want to have the bedrooms and the bathrooms on that side is, like I said, my son will be living with us probably until, we die. And I don't know. So he would have his own space, he'd have his own bedroom and his own bathroom, and give him some, independence while he's being supervised. I don't know, he's high functioning autism. And I want to have to move the laundry to the main floor. Like I said, we're probably not going to be able to, one of us will be in a wheelchair, I'll tell you that. It's not even like a question. And so we're doing the doors 36 inches, and we'll have laundry right up there. We'll have the bathrooms that you can get into with a wheelchair and everything wheelchair accessible. The whole house is going to be handicap accessible.
Is that what you was asking?
Yeah, I'm trying to get an understanding of if you were relocated to the south, how much disruption in the existing floor plan would there need to be? That
You mean
was-
the east, Josh, or the south?
The east, I'm sorry, the east.
And also, I believe there'd be a lot of added costs going to the east because they have to displace all that material there, as well as the way the roof structure is. I think
And is
if I
there-
bring it to the west side, then we can bring another hip roof, line it up with the roof we have now, keeping everything even with it.
Right. And wasn't there topography change in the backyard as well?
The backyard has a slope that goes on up, is what you're asking.
Okay.
Any more questions? Have we done the public input part?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Is there any other information I can provide you?
No, I think you've answered what.
The floor plan that's provided shows two, I don't know, good-sized beds in the proposed addition, and two bathtubs.
Yeah. Well, one's a bathtub, one's a stand-up shower.
Okay, they look the same symbols.
And, yeah, well, I drew it, it wasn't like done by, I was told not to go to an architect until I got approval. Somebody at the town told me not to go to an architect until, I pay $1,500 for an architect and I'm being told you can't do it. So that's my drawing of it, but the room size is in there, they're only 9.5 feet wide, the bedrooms. So the beds, they're on the chart that I use, they're doubles, not queens, they're double beds. And that's supposed to be the size that it was there, so I just kind of put things in where I thought
Okay.
they would go.
Okay.
But they're only like 9.5 feet wide, and then they're longer.
And it's gonna be connected directly to the main floor of the house?
Yes, we're gonna put the hallway right between where the new addition is and where the old part of the house will be a hallway going into the bedrooms. And at the end of the hall will be the laundry room.
Okay, we're gonna open this up for public comment. I don't know what's the number.
It's right there on the board. 872.
872-7011. If you'd like to speak on before or against this variance. Since Mr. Barone had to recuse himself, you will need all 3 yes votes in order to grant this variance from the remaining board members. Understand that?
Yeah, I didn't know he was on the board.
Tonight.
Somebody gave me his name, I had no idea when I called him.
Ms. Barone. Well, we are missing one board member tonight, so
Okay.
you take that into account.
Which is to say that if you wanted to table this and bring it back to when Ms. Vola was here, so you had a 4-member board, then you could have 1 dissension and still get the variance. So it's something to consider if you're concerned that one person is going to vote against it. You might want to table until the next meeting.
I'm having a hard time reading you guys.
That's good.
Poker
Yeah.
players.
Should the application be denied, you cannot reapply for a period of 1 year unless you submit a substantially different application. This way you know your options.
When was
They're
that?
off being heard by more members than just the 3, should there be a nay vote.
Okay, so if you're having trouble reading me, on paper and what I saw on Sunday, I'm a little bit skeptical, but hearing your discussions of the amount of material that have to be moved and the utilities and the roof and the additional cost of doing that, and you're right, a lot of the houses, it's a bit more of a hodgepodge than your immediate area. A lot of those houses are pre-existing non-conforming by a long shot. In reality, you're pre-existing non-conforming because the code was last updated in that area, and I believe it was 1968. So I think I'd vote in favor personally, but again, I'm only speaking for myself. You have to convince 2 other board members, and it is somewhat substantial out the front of the house where everybody on the street's going to be seeing it, so I could see where, you know, I see your point, and And they are significant, especially in terms of the sewers and the moving the material. And there's nothing you can do about the lay of the land, so.
So if you look at 370 Webster Road on the second page, that's a new, that's all redone, brand new. That's only been there a couple years.
Yeah,
And they're really
that's
close.
fairly recent.
That's really close.
That's a different subdivision.
No, that's
That's
R1.
where it gets weird.
Oh, because it's R1. I just looked at R1 where we were on the map.
And what we're trying to do, because we like this area of Webster, we really do like 250 there, and because of so many people going in, we want the street appeal, we want to be a part of that group, and we want it to look appropriate, so that's what we're, and that's when we looked at other houses too, we want to fit in with this aspect of it. And with this, asking this variance, goes a little closer. I don't think it's too far off the base of what the look of the neighborhood is, and we'd like to keep that aspect of it too.
The house right to the south of us has a knockout too, not quite as much as what we're doing, but ours is only going to be a few feet long, closer to the road than the house right next to us. And then the house on the other side of him is even closer. So,
When was your house built?
1960.
I mean, even the newer ones, you know, in that neighborhood, I mean, they look 70s. So, and the front setbacks, I mean, they vary with each property. You know, I didn't get out and actually measure them, but there are some that come forward and there's some that sit
Yeah.
farther back.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a hodgepodge.
And the reason we're asking you so many questions about, usually when we get an addition, I would say 99 out of 100 times it's on the back or the side of the property, not in the front. So the reason that we're asking is what the utilities and the topography of the property are reasons why you can't put the property on the back side as opposed to the front side. I understand. That's why we have to ask you those questions.
Yeah, originally when we bought the house, my original thought was to put it on the back until we found out there were so much problems with doing it that way. So that's why we decided to try the front. It would eliminate all those problems and less disturbance of the ground and everything around it.
All right, I don't think we're gonna get any calls. Anybody else have any questions?
You going to do Socorro?
Yep. So I'll make a motion for seeker. Which one do I have to read?
Second.
Type 2?
Right.
Area variance, minor accessory buildings does not change use, or the unlisted one?
Unlisted action.
Yeah. Unlisted use variance, expansion of existing facilities.
It's not a use variance, it's area variance,
It's an area variance.
type 2 action.
This is different than the last time I did this.
It's a type 2 action.
Type 2. Area variance, minor accessory does not change your use or density, no action necessary under seeker.
So that's your application?
That's what it says.
All right, now who's gonna second that?
I did.
All right, very good.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Is there a motion otherwise?
No.
I would suggest that you table this one. So,
We're gonna have to.
yeah, so,
All you have to do is make a motion to table to the next meeting, which is August 11th.
Make a motion to table.
Yeah.
All in
Is there
favor?
anything you can tell me what I need to bring to start this?
I'd like to see a better sketch of the internal floor plan. You could do it. The way you're showing it is somewhat confusing.
Can I just see which one you have, because I
Sure.
have multiple of them?
Okay.
That motion passed.
well, would it have passed with one? For seeker, if Don voted no,
Okay, that's what I'm
See,
saying.
this has a wall,
For a
and there's
secret
the closet
request, I
door.
don't-
well, yeah, but you still have to have a majority of the
Right, if it
board.
would have gone forward, even with the.
It could be hand-drawn.
So we don't
If it
have,
would have been a nay, it wouldn't have passed.
right,
Like I
so
say,
seeker,
could be
we
hand-drawn.
didn't
If you
pass
prove one better
seeker.
than that, great.
Right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, we voted in favor.
Well, no,
No.
Mr. Houser said no.
Oh, he did?
He voted
Yeah.
nay.
Okay, all
So
right.
you,
So what I might also suggest, Ms. Simpson, Mr. Simpson, that you might want to be prepared to give greater detail to the difficulties in setting the addition on the east side or the rear of the property. So the statements that you made were somewhat ambiguous. I mean, you talked about difficulties moving dirt, maybe some utilities in the way, but if you can be more particular in what those items are and the difficulties associated with it, whether it be expense or actual construction,
or if you have to relocate any of the utilities.
that would, I think, be a big help to the board.
If you could, yeah, photos of the basement with the utilities, anything on the, well, be expensive to get the surveyor to note that, but topographic map, you can usually get those,
Even some photos, that would be helpful,
yeah.
showing the difference in elevation. Because I'm looking at the application here, and you're spending $100,000 for one addition. I would rather have the addition done correctly. That's the reason for my name.
Yeah, I guess because I had somebody else who uses a contractor, and they put in so that he could be Mr. Ballone's number. I had no idea he was on the board when I called him.
No.
So I really don't have, I'm just
No,
guessing.
no, I understand, okay. But I'm looking at the cost versus what I'm seeing, and there again, that's the reason for my name.
Okay, hang on one second. So legally, at this point, Mr. Barone had to recuse himself. Is there any way at this point where they can eliminate the appearance of a conflict by saying we're definitely not going with you, or handing him a letter to that effect that says we're not going to consider?
With Barry?
Yeah.
I mean, he recused himself, I don't see a conflict of interest.
Well,
The question is, can the appearance of the conflict be terminated, if you will, by the applicants indicating they will not be considering Mr. Barone or his entity for work on the project?
Well, he wouldn't have to recuse himself at the next meeting. He could be a board member.
Well, the question is, can that take place? I would say
You're
that,
talking about so he can vote?
right.
well, I think at this point, it would make sense to table it, but Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, if you want to affirmatively indicate that you are not going to include Mr. Barone in any bids or connection with the project, that would probably allow him to return. But you don't have to make that determination right now, and we'll let Mr. Barone know that we put that possibility on the table. But at the very least, at the next meeting, you'll have 4 board members, of which you would need 3 of 4 to vote favorably to pass your request.
Yeah, if you could provide some cost estimates where you're, versus where you're proposing, if it was located to the east, how much more expensive it would be as far as matching roof lines, moving utilities, things of that nature. That would be helpful.
The thing is that until now, with the way the hip roof is, and it's going north and south, and it has the gable that comes off on the east side, that in order to do an addition right next to that addition, we're gonna have to go a full gable roof throughout the whole piece of it.
I agree with you. The board needs something it can hang its hat on.
I understand, and you
I
need
just-
that drawn up.
So do I just
As well as-
call a bunch of people, ask them for estimates or something? How do I get that? I'm happy, I didn't
That's
go
not a
on.
bad, that's not a bad way to do it, you know, and, you know, just pick a few people in the area and say, what would the difference in cost be if we did this here or did that there? And if they, you know, they should be able to do that seat of the pants.
A lot of contractors seem busy right now.
Yeah, it took us 3 weeks to get one person out, and then it took him 5 weeks to tell us that he couldn't do it and gave us his name. That's just, we'll have to figure something out.
So we're at table for
August 11th.
And
And if you need
we'd like
further,
to see some topographical
Yeah, if
and
you-
a little bit of the roof and more detail of the
Please. Every variance establishes a precedent. And I certainly don't want to establish a precedent along Route 250.
okay, Mr. and Mrs. Simpson, really simply put, you have to be able to demonstrate that there's no other remedy, there's no other way to do this other than the way that you desire. And then assuming you can meet some of the other criteria, that's really, I think, the piece that you got to focus on. And how you do that is probably have someone in the trades be able to either put that in a piece of paper, maybe come to the presentation with you. I'm not sure, and I don't mean to be gender biased, if Mr. Simpson, if you're in the trades, but you know, we want to know what the substance is. If you're talking about gables and roof lines, it's helpful if we know that you have some knowledge in the area and we can, as one board member says, hang our hat on something.
I understand, you know, there's a chimney that's on the back end of that piece. I personally wouldn't know how we could add a section into that corner piece and lay out the roofing and lay out the house with it. To me, it was the easiest, cheapest would be that come off on the west side. And plus, that also adds to curb appeal.
Sure.
It would add on to just a better looking house.
If you have difficulty in getting that information because of contractors are extremely busy right now, there's no question about that. If you need more time, let the
I'd like to be in the house before Christmas.
Yeah, even though you requested the table till August 11th, if you're not prepared and you're not ready to go forward, you can table it again.
just call in advance and let us know so we can move it.
Let Josh know.
Yep.
Okay?
All
right, thank you.
We're set for the 11th?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right. Threw me a curveball. I've never had anybody say nay, see her before. I would usually put a little second to the motion.
And I missed it altogether.
You threw me a curveball, Don. I didn't know what to do.
I said it loud enough.
I know you did. I never had anybody say nay on a seeker before. All right, I'll read this in. Paul, how are you?
Before we get started, if I agree to fire for Owen, can you sit down and speak?
Yes.
He's marginally qualified, so I think we'll stick with the plan here.
All right, 175 Longview Drive addition located at 175 Longview Drive. Applicant David Payne is requesting an area variance to allow a 8-foot side setback where 15 feet is required to allow the construction of a bath addition to the existing single-family dwelling on .4 acre parcel having SBL number 078.05-1-23 located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 225-11B 5B1 of the Code of the Town of Webster. Hello. All right.
Thank you.
Want to tell us a little bit about your project?
Yeah, I think you read the narrative that I provided, and some of you had a chance to visit the site. And when we started this process, the first thing we did is we talked to our neighbors and told them what we were thinking about. Check that. First, we talked to 2 different contractors about what it would take to put this addition on and what some of the expenses would be to see if it was on budget, first of all. Then we talked to my in-laws, who are both in their 80s living in Florida right now. And frankly, what's happened with what's going on in the world right now has really kind of accelerated things for us to the extent where It's just my wife and I. We could perfectly be happy without the extra bathroom, but it really has kind of moved this down the road a little bit. And it's become something where if they needed to come up here, should something happen to one of them and the other needed to come with us, we'd be 4 or 5 months behind the game right out of the gate. So the goal would be to make sure that it's ready for them if it ever becomes apparent that their need will be there. When we talked to some of the builders, the discussion came up about windows, and that's really what's driving this whole thing. If you had a chance to see the site, it was built in 1963 using hopper windows. When you're inside the elevation of the house, the windows started about here and go up. And they were very, contemporary 1963. They made a lot of sense back then. They're good windows. We like them. They're Anderson windows. We don't have any problem with them. But they do limit egress. We're concerned about that if something should happen in that bedroom area in the back corner there. So that came into play. We also, in talking with our neighbors, we have 2 windows on the south elevation, which backs to the village well fields, and then 1 window on the west elevation. And so our neighbor on the west, we actually talked about it, said, this is what we're thinking about. We'd have to relocate windows on the west side. And they didn't seem to think that there was any problem with it being where we were talking about. So we then talked with the other neighbors on both sides, and we actually didn't want to get down this road and find that, somebody was objected to it for whatever reason. So I've met with all the neighbors. I've got a piece of paper that they were kind enough to acknowledge, and if they need to, they'll call in today. But I do have something that said that the 3 people directly across the street, which will be impacted visually, and then our neighbor to the west and our neighbor to the east, by definition of the 100-foot, would be impacted. And all of them seem to be in agreement with what our plan would be. We too, I'm sorry, I was listening to the other application. This doesn't necessarily affect the cost that much, because whether or not it's 8 by 10 out the back or 8 by 10 out the front doesn't impact. We'd have to relocate the air conditioner and a couple of other little things like that. But it really does, it eliminates 2 windows that we have on the south side of the house, and no way to put them back in, because the addition would basically take the place of the 2 windows that are on the south side now. We could certainly, replace the 2 windows, or at least one of the windows on what would be the west elevation, but they would be facing the neighbor's property. And in theory, we would probably use a hopper window so that it matches all the other windows in the house. So that was the constraint we had on why we proposed this addition on the side. It sits pretty far back on the lot for those of you who had a chance to visit. It's all the way in the back corner. It's barely visible from the street except for that 10 or 15 feet where you're looking at it, given the setback of the house and the fact that the proposed addition would be another 15 feet back from the front corner of the building. The other thing we proposed, we don't have the design in front of you, but still working with the designer, would be the roof lines would all match. Our plan is to use the same overhangs and make this look like it was built that way as part of the addition. The other thing that we looked at, and our neighbors actually pointed out to us, they recently purchased their house about 2 years ago, and they have a split level, which occupies a lot less of their 100-foot lot than ours does. Given the fact that it's a ranch, it pretty much covers the whole setback when they laid out the lots in 100-foot. They have about, I think he said 19 feet from their house to their lot line, where their fence is, I'm sorry. And their fence is in about 5 feet. So we figured that was about 24 feet from where their house is to their lot line, rightfully so. So we're still going to be almost 30 feet away from where their house is proper. And no proposal to put any windows on the west side for their privacy and ours. We would relocate 1 window on the north side, just so that when you're looking at it from the street, you won't see a big blank wall of vinyl siding. The idea was to match the windows that are there now, actually reuse one of the hopper windows that's there in place now. So that's where we are with the process. We really would have liked to have been able to do this without being able to plan the addition the way we want. We also, to be honest with you, a couple of the people we've talked to, the designer and the builder, said 8 feet is really about as small as you want to go because it's an outside dimension. So if we frame it with 6-inch walls, we're going to lose almost a foot. So that bathroom is already going to become 7 feet on the width. So if we went out the back, we could almost do whatever we wanted because our lot line goes back 100 feet to the village wellwood fields. But it certainly impacts both our plans and our neighbors as well. So that's where we are. Do you folks have any questions for me?
Yeah, go back to, so you're asking for a 8-foot side setback. Can you go into some more detail why you can't put it off the back and have the structure actually line up so that you don't impact the side setback and still have it off that room?
Yeah, if you're in the room proper, what we're talking about, if the addition was not on the west side, it would be on the south side.
Right.
There are 2 windows on the south side right now. If we put an addition there, we're going to lose both of those windows. They go away because the addition goes there. So there would be windows in the bathroom, but there would only be 1 window in the bedroom unless we add another window to the west elevation, which means we're adding another window on the neighbor's side on the west side. And that still only gives us 2 windows in the building because the addition is going to occupy almost the entire south side. It also, there's a wall, and I know this sounds kind of silly, but the designer pointed out to us, there's really no good place to have a door enter the bathroom on what is the longest wall in the bedroom. The way the furniture is laid out right now, there's only 1 place for a bed and 1 place for a dresser because of the constraint of closet entries and things like that. So by putting the addition on the back and then having to put a door in that also, we have essentially 1 wall that we could arrange furniture on the entire building. Because it's a rectangle, running this east and west versus north and south. And that was my first inclination, let's just put it out the back and we're done with it. But after talking with the designers and even with the neighbors, they said, well, if you're going to be adding windows, we'd rather, everybody likes their privacy, and the idea was to not put them on the west elevation. The expense isn't significant. We actually, the plan, it's a brick veneer. I don't know if you've seen the house, but it's brick all the way around. And, it's not a huge expense to remove the brick veneer and remove the windows like that. It's $3,000 or $4,000 in the grand scheme of things. But it's never going to look right when you try and match the mortar joints and things like that. So it's going to look like an addition when that happens. The other thing that they pointed out is to not have the addition exactly line up with the corner, but rather to pull it in about 8 inches, if that makes sense. If the south and west corner where we're talking about, our proposal is to pull that in about 8 inches or so the brick turns the corner, it looks like it should, and then we start deciding on the other 3 sides to tie it in properly. And then that works also with the hip roof. If you've seen it, it does have a hip roof, runs all the way across the back, and the proposal is to continue that hip just the way it's done now and then re-roof that section. The air conditioning, we figured out, actually what we'd end up doing, he said, if you're going to move it, you might as well replace it. And so that was the other issue. Other than that, that was what our issues were.
Questions?
No, I visited the site this afternoon, met with the applicant, and really what he's proposing for the convenience of his in-laws, it's really minimal as far as the bathroom. And he's absolutely right. Those are exterior dimensions, and by the time you get the 6-inch walls in, it's a small room. I really don't see any issues going out to the side setback.
It's only 8 by 10.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, any questions?
No, I visited the site on Sunday, and on paper I didn't particularly like it, but again, looking at the layout of the house and everything else, and the fact that it's a very small addition, it's doesn't seem to be excessive on the point.
So we are missing a board member tonight, and Mr. Barone had to recuse himself. At this point, I'm going to open up for public input. 872-7011, if you'd like to call and on behalf or against this applicant. Thanks.
Yeah, the other thing we highlighted, well, if we're waiting for any calls, was when we talked about barrier-free, that also, and you haven't seen the building, or at least what we're talking about here, but there's one window that's on the west elevation now, and the proposal is to change that to a door. And that door needs to be 36 inches to provide egress, to make it barrier-free. The bathroom would also be 100% barrier-free as well. And essentially, my in-laws would take that bedroom and that bathroom and call it their own. When they stay with us now, we manage. You know, my wife still works, I'm semi-retired, and if we didn't have, if it was just occasional guests, we wouldn't be talking about this addition. I'd rather not spend $30,000, but if the need came up, it really would be almost immediate in nature. One of us would have to leave.
I know who it would be.
Yeah.
At this time, I will make a motion for a type 2 seeker.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Closing the public hearing.
I am going to close the public comment section, and no calls. Anybody like to go through the standards?
Okay, yeah, the request is not out of character with the neighborhood. As the applicant pointed out, the distance between the houses will still be about 30 feet, which is pretty typical, especially since I used to own a house over there. I'm well familiar with it. So it's not particularly out of character. It's not visible from the road except for a very small portion, and it is to the rear of the house. Not be a detriment created to nearby properties. We're removing the west-facing windows so that it will actually increase the privacy, and there'll still be enough of a buffer for maintenance and mowing of lawn and things like that without getting into the neighbor's side of the house. Benefit not achievable by any other method. It could be achieved by putting the addition to the south side, but that would create large issues with the rest of the house. It's not substantial, about, little around 50%, so it's not horribly. No physical or environmental impacts. Difficulty is self-created in this instance, and it's not an undesirable change, however. So that said, I'll make a motion to grant an area variance to Mr. David Payne at 175 Longview Drive, requesting an area variance to allow an 8-foot side setback where 15 foot is required, to allow the construction of a bath addition to the existing single-family dwelling on a .54 acre parcel having SBL number 078.05-1-23, located in an R3 single-family residential district under section 225-11 subsection B, subsection 5, subsection B, subsection 1 of the Code of the Town of Webster.
Second.
Hey, Mr. Snyder,
Aye.
Mr. Hauser,
Aye.
Mr. Denoda.
Aye. All right, your area variance has been granted. 2 conditions apply. You must obtain all governmental permits required, including a town building permit, and have meaningful construction from 1 year from today.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
All right?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It should be constructed, the variance is granted per your exhibit dated April 21st of 2020.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Is Barry in the building, or, I just want to say hello, is he in the building or already gone?
He probably ran away after we booted him off that one job.
All right, thanks. Concludes tonight's Thank you very much for watching. Good night.